have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
Welcome to another episode of John's Untitled Podcast, a partner of MoshPitNation.com. The guest on this episode is Jonny McBee, vocalist and all-around musical talent for The Browning, and my all-around co-host is Mr. Daniel Terry. How are you doing today?
I mean, I've been better. I've got a sinus infection. I just got curb stomped by another podcast on Facebook.
Is that why you got sick? You're just wallowing in the throes of that?
I think so. I think I was holding on to health until until that poll ran out. But that's cool. It's it is what it is, and they deserve it, man. They clearly have some Facebook reach that I can only aspire to have.
Hey, but it was pretty fun to actually watch the competition.
Oh yeah.
I gotta say, and for those who may not know what we're talking about, Ear Peeler is doing a podcast. I guess a best of tournament, sort of. I guess would be a great way to describe it.
Sort of, yeah. Just seeing who has the most reach. Who's the most influential podcast? Who's the king?
Yes, and basically, a lot of the show favorites and show companions, Daniel's podcast discography discussion was up against some stiff competition. Joshua Toomey has been up against some of the better podcasts that are most well known, but sadly I also think those podcasts aren't aware that there's a competition going on. So it is interesting to see people voting solely for the podcast while no one is actually actively pushing the contest for the other podcasts. But I think Toomey's going to have some struggles on this next round. And Roach Coach was in a fight on the second round as well.
Yeah, I mean, my heart goes out to those guys. We were all out in the trenches, man. Us and Roach Coach, we were fighting the good fight. The only way we knew how to fight it. And but like I said, man, these classic rock podcasts, you just can't beat them.
Right.
They've got the built-in fan base. They've got tried and true bands, And I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, do you think it's because we're too negative? Like we criticize bands, whereas these guys celebrate over 30 years of music, and we're just here just take a big shit on it, And I think, not those bands, but just typically the bands we talk about. I mean, we try to stay positive for the most part, but I mean, there's still stuff that we're just like, this is terrible, even if it's one of our favorite bands,
Yeah, I'm. It was kind of funny because speaking to that, I was a guest on Discography Discussion's most recent episode, which dropped today, Sunday, as of the time we're recording this, and Dan, myself, and Joe all talked about Misery Signals, and I think for the first time, typically when I do a podcast, or typically when I've gone on and talked about Lamb of God, or I've talked about Esley Dying, pretty much never going to talk to any of those dudes probably ever in my life, or to become friends with them, or any association with me to them ever. But I realized I do have some ties to the people associated with Misery Signals, and it was a little bit harder to talk a little bit objectively about a band when you've now formed friendships with some of these people in these bands. I feel like it would be, akin to Dan basically having something negative to say about Zao, and I would hope that the guys...
Never going to happen.
Well, I mean, there's that, but I would hope that, basically the guys, if you had something objective to say about the band or an album or whatever, that they would take it more to heart because they know you're a lifelong fan and you've been a fan for a long time, but that still doesn't take away the personal aspect of these things, when you say things. And it kind of sucks. I will say you should go listen to the episode. It was a pretty quick, I think it's an hour long chat. We break down the 4 records that there are for the band, and I think overall it was a really good, very positive on everything. However, when we get to Absent Light, I will say it's a little kind of negative, but I think as as we say, it's kind of hard when you look at some of the records that bands put out in the catalog they put out to not kind of look at that last album a little bit more objectively than the rest of them. But it is still kind of weird. I listened to it today, and I was just kind of like, I noticed even when I was saying it, and I caught myself as I was listening to it, I go, oh, you can kind of almost tell where I was like, oh, wait, I don't want to be mean and talk bad about people I know.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to say that. Yeah. No, I feel you on that. 100%. I mean, even to, the Zayo thing. I mean, we covered Zayo pretty early on in the podcast, and, we still I had very positive opinions about those classic Zayo albums that came out when I was in high school, but, for some of the ones that I didn't think were so great, we didn't really have a problem throwing that out either. And really, whenever we ended up talking to Scott from Zayo just a couple of months later, he seemed pretty receptive to it, like totally chill about it. But it is one of those things that, sometimes you forget about the personal aspect of things whenever you get so like into a discussion about a band. It's almost like a band becomes a totally different entity separate from the people that are in it, as if it's its own living, breathing thing. And so yeah, no, I think that we could all learn something from just remembering to keep that human element in it, when we're criticizing and looking at the harshness of how we criticize it. But I thought that was a rock solid chat, because again, with Misery Signals, it wasn't that we hated the fourth album. It was just that our expectations had been set so astronomically high, from Controller, that and it really, I don't think anything they put out really could have,
Yeah.
Because in typical music fan fashion, if it had sounded exactly like Controller, we probably would have criticized it for that too.
It's true.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was a good chat. So go over to Discography Discussion, find it on any of your podcasts. Now available on Spotify as of today. So go and check out our conversation on Misery Signals and follow the podcast as a whole. It's a good podcast, even if I'm not on it. Man, I've had a week or a weekend. So Louder Than Life got canceled, as you awkwardly heard me rustle my way through that. And so I quickly, stopped feeling sorry for myself and the fact that this awesome opportunity went away. And pretty much as soon as that podcast was done, I started emailing publicists. I started, trying to figure out a way to make things happen. Tried to get a crack at the Self-Help Festival that happened in Detroit. Didn't get the opportunity to go cover that festival, which is fine. But ended up making some shows that I wanted to go see and interviews I wanted to make happen. And as of the day we're recording this, it's late on Sunday night, technically Monday at this point for me. But actually, I guess for Dan, it's actually into Monday now.
Yeah, it's 8 minutes into Monday.
Yeah, so yesterday I went to go do an episode with Vincent Bennett from the Acacia Strain. Long time coming, and I will say, unfortunately, the audio quality is a bit muffled just because they were playing in the new venue, in the basement of the venue that I have done a lot of my interviews in, and the green room is literally right behind the stage. And due to some bullshit, my interview started about 30 minutes after it was supposed to. So where I was supposed to do an interview where there was no band playing, I basically did it during the entire opening band set. So there's a lot of noise.
Oh, man.
I'm going to go ahead and pre-apologize for that. But let's get into my conversation with Jonny McBee of The Browning. I have the pleasure this early evening of talking to Jonny McBee, vocalist for The Browning. They have a new record coming out called Geist, out October 26th via Spinefarm Records. How are you doing today?
I'm good, doing good.
So, Geist, it's an interesting album title, and something I kind of latch onto quite a bit is meanings of albums, especially when there is a song with that same name. So I kind of wanted to start with the title itself and what the word means. When I was looking it up, it speaks to the spirit of an individual or of a group. And kind of in looking and listening to the music, I sadly didn't get the lyrics sent to me to further back up this idea I had, but it definitely sounds like a lot of inner struggles with the concept of self, whether it be put against, the constructs of a religion or of, the world around you as a whole. Is that kind of a fair assessment of kind of what I was listening to?
Yeah. Did you hear the whole album?
Yeah. Yep. I've heard the whole album. Yes.
Yeah. Overall, the album talks about a lot of different topics and a lot of like acceptance and a lot of like struggle through a lot of different stuff. A lot of personal struggle and a lot of existential struggle as well. Whenever it comes to like thoughts of God or the universe or anything, and then overall, like um, the song Geist, and if you look at the album art and whatnot, our albums have like kind of they have a story behind it. The album art does, in the sense of like it's a theme that's gone throughout all of them. That's the same guy through on all of them,
right?
And on this one, you basically see the guy walking on the planet, walking towards this big spirit or ghost that's coming out of this volcano-ish thing, and that is basically the ghost of the planet that is coming out, and it's in my perception of the album, the ghost of the planet, the spirit of the planet is coming out because it's just gonna destroy. And I'm not saying Earth; it's a different planet, and it's coming out, and it's gonna destroy all life on the planet. And our guy is just walking towards it, accepting the fate of he's been there trying to save that planet, and he's tried everything, and now he's just walking to accept the fate of what's about to happen whenever the spirit of this planet comes out.
Kind of forgive the lack of knowledge on song titles themselves. I just kind of
You're
have
fine.
the album on a repeat. But I actually think is there a line, if I'm not mistaken, kind of speaking to sort of like an atom bomb of sorts, like an impact, kind of being like just seeing literally like the end of the world literally coming at you, almost like an atom bomb dropping. And it from what I could kind of make out, it sounded like you're literally watching the end of the world, and you're basically just kind of on the outer reaches of like of this thing happening, and you're just basically waiting for it to hit you.
Essentially, and that's what the song "Final Breath" is all about.
Okay.
In the chorus, I say, "With my final breath, my lungs will fill with fire."
Right.
And with that, I mean, like, you are watching like this explosion or whatever it is coming at you, and just taking a deep breath, and just that's what it is. You just accept it and you breathe it in, and and the second line after that's when there's nothing left, the earth will sing in silence, because the planet will the planet on that picture, like that, the ghost from the spirit of the planet is coming out and gonna destroy everything, and once everything is gone, the earth will be nice and happy in its solace.
So you kind of spoke to the album cover itself for this record. You've spoken to having a carrying, I don't know if mascot is the word I want to use, but
To an extent, yeah.
an image that people can associate with the band, with this progression of the albums. So with each record, and your band specifically, there's a lot of cinematic elements to the music itself,
Yes.
and very much omnipresent on this record as well. Something I've kind of wondered is, do you come up with a sort of story first for like I guess I don't know if a concept is necessarily what I want to say, but just kind of like a loose construct of an idea, and that's kind of what shapes some of the like synths and a lot of the music that's being made before there's even lyrics associated with any of this.
No, the base. Well, um, with this album, I wanted to push um a little more towards a dark apocalyptic sound, like how my old stuff that I used to write was. And not that our music has always been dark. There's not a single song we write that isn't dark. But with this one, I wanted to push more of the sound wise. I had the goal of it being more pushed towards a timeless like synth sound, which is more of like a 80s synthwave, any 80s synthwave sound rather than like a big ravey sound. And so, which that sound, the 80s synthwave like tones and stuff in the synthesizers are a lot more emotional and also a bit apocalyptic sounding because they're very dark and so I didn't have a thought in the sense of like what I wanted it to sound like. Besides, I knew I wanted to push that sound more in our genre. Now, as far as lyrically, I also don't necessarily at the start of the process um have like an album concept made. It's basically the albums end up having an overarching theme every time, just by how I feel at the time. And I was going through a lot of stuff last year, and it was really hard to write the lyrics, and so a lot, and not even just last year, over the course of years and years, like accepting your fate is something that um, like I think about every single day of accepting what's coming in the future and trying to work my best way around it.
Yeah, I definitely kind
So
of you know I'm trying to remember if I could even remember the track title, but I think it's I think it's on Skybreaker.
uh huh.
You have the and again forgive me of trying to remember the lyric
You're
of
fine.
but something the female vocal coming in and talking
Yeah.
about basically all these things, success and all these things.
Yes.
And the weird thing is kind of this finality of none of these things are forever, even though we place
Yes.
such strong emphasis on the fact that they are. And almost, the way I correlated it in listening to the song was, once you kind of realize that literally the sky kind of breaks because you're not held down, there's no ceilings
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. Basically, Skybreaker. The first lyric is failure is not fatal. And so, like, whenever you fail at something, it doesn't mean it's the end. It doesn't mean that you're just screwed. Your life's over. Um, like everyone fails at one thing before they do something successful, unless they're extremely lucky. And then, uh, um, then the next main line is success is not final. So
Yeah.
if you do have success, you can't just stop there.
So, something that was kind of interesting too in listening to this record was, I know you're a big gamer, an avid gamer yourself.
Yeah.
I know you even have like I think it's a Twitch or some kind of streaming
Uh
service
huh.
thing. And, I kind of had wondered with, a lot of the elements that you're bringing in, how much does track listing play in when you're putting an album together because of all of the sounds, the ethereal sounds
Yeah.
you have kind of going around? Do you, as you're writing something, are you thinking like, okay, this can be a callback to this as it kind of tells the overall story of the record, or do things like that just kind of are happenstance?
Whenever I'm writing a song, sometimes it's just obvious of if that it's basically whether that a song is going to be a middle or a beginning, a middle, or an end.
Okay.
Um, like so, I'll write a song like the song "Awaken the Omega." It's a big one. There's barely any screaming on it.
Yeah.
And I knew that I wanted that to be like the middle track. I was like, this is like the break that the album needs. And then Skybreaker, whenever I was writing that initially, I actually wrote it as an instrumental. And I knew as I started writing it, I was like, this is going to be the last song in the album because I wanted it to be like a anthem, like finale.
Okay.
Um, And so musically, whenever I'm writing a song, I'm like, this needs to be here on the album. Now, there's a lot of them that can kind of be put anywhere, but there's definitely right whenever I wrote the first song, "Sick Minds," I knew that was going to be the intro. Right whenever I wrote "Awaken the Omega," I knew that'd be in the middle, and then I knew that "Skybreaker" would be at the end, for sure.
Something that's been kind of interesting over the last handful of chats I've been doing, and talking about album sequencing and so forth, is kind of thinking, and I don't think a lot of people think like this preemptively, but thinking about vinyl, because what's kind of interesting is now that vinyl has a big resurgence and a lot of artists are a lot more involved in the creative of the vinyl, whether it be different packaging, expanded artwork, whatever. It's
Yeah.
been kind of fun as a person who collects vinyl, thinking about a record, potentially having 4 different beginnings. And,
Uh-huh.
I feel like you're a band that definitely, with vinyl releases, I could see you being someone who kind of thinks in that way as well. Like, okay, we're going to put these 3 songs, and then like when you flip the disc over, like I kind of arranged it this way, because then it's kind of retelling this. It's almost like a new chapter, kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's cool.
But
I haven't thought of that, but now that you mention it, it'll probably be something to fix out of my head next time.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Speaking of the video game streaming and so forth, I sometimes I get really jealous when I watch people play video games, because like, even though I like playing games myself, sometimes watching people play and be very good at something, it's like, fuck, I don't I don't have the time or the patience to play some of these games.
Yeah.
And so what was kind of interesting, though, and I think it's something we're starting to see a lot more in this ever present online culture, in e-gaming and so forth, is you kind of took it a step further, and not only were you playing games, but you were kind of showcasing kind of the behind the scenes of making this record.
Yeah.
And as someone who loves documentaries and loves seeing the behind the scenes creative process of a lot of bands that I listen to, I kind of, you are one of the first people I can think of that really took it a step further in a more raw approach, because instead of it being finely edited once like you're getting the DVD when everything's all said and done, and you can edit things out, it's like people are watching you struggle to, like, that's not the line, or
yeah.
fuck, that's not how I wanted that. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
so I kind of wondered, what does that do to your creative process when you're letting so many people into it literally as it's happening?
It was interesting because there's actually a few reasons I decided to do it. One, the initial reason wasn't to show people what I was doing. The initial reason was to get me to do it. Which it was because my thing was, I was like, if I write this stuff on stream, then I'm gonna force to be to write it at a decent rate,
Right.
which I still spent a year and a half writing this album, but other albums I've spent over 2 years writing. And so I kind of wanted to get back to a faster pace of writing, in the sense of like, I wanted to write just like what happened in my mind at that moment, And so whenever I'm writing it on my own, I mean, I'm working on a side project right now, and I spent 10 hours the other day on writing only synths.
Kind of goes back to that dedication.
And writing by myself, it's an it's an extremely long process. And so I was like, I'm going to get on stream and have people watch me, and then I'll have to write at a good pace, because like I would want to start a song and finish a song on a stream. So I would do like 6-hour streams and write entire songs, and instead of spending 10 hours only like structuring a song or something, and so but what it turned into is first the first thing that was a good thing that I noticed was, I can be like, yo, what do you guys, should I do this here? Like, should I do this or should I do this? And the chat would tell me, what they thought would maybe be better. Or I would be writing something and some random person in chat would say, oh, maybe you could like slow that part down a little bit, or, something random like that. And then I'd be like, oh yeah, maybe, so it was a cool process to just kind of like be there. And then also I got a lot of really good feedback, because people people like didn't understand how I was writing what I was so quickly and stuff. So it made me feel good. Um, because once you're in your head so much as a musician and a producer, you really start thinking everything you do sucks. And and so having a bunch of people sitting there and being like, dude, that's sick. Like, I don't know how you write songs this quick and make them so good. And I'm like, true, I guess I am kind of sick. And so that was really nice and really motivational. But one thing that started kind of getting to me is like, on this record, obviously there's a few parts and a few songs that are much different than what the Brownings ever done.
Yeah.
And so I would try to do something a bit weird or softer, and people in the chat would be like, that's not heavy. That's not heavy enough. You should do something heavier. And so then it started becoming like, yo, I understand y'all want to hear me write Browning songs, but I also want to just write what I really want to write. And so I started, basically, I wrote, I think like 6 or 7 songs on stream, and then the rest I saved for off stream. It might have been 7 or 8 songs. I don't even remember. I wrote a bunch of other songs too. Like I wrote songs that weren't just Browning songs. Like I'd get on and just do random metalcore songs or hardcore songs or something. And so those were fun just because I would just crap out stuff and I wouldn't give a crap about it. But the Browning stuff is obviously like really important to me. And so I took some time off of streaming writing so that I could do some stuff without hearing people's opinions.
Yeah, I feel like that's something, that has become a lot more. It's something that, actually, speaking to that, I remember when you guys were staying here, actually, on the Chimera tour, and I think a song or a video of yours leaked while you were here, and just kind of seeing your guys' reactions to the comments on the song and everything was really eye-opening because at that point, I constantly hear people going like, oh, I don't read the comments, don't ever read the comments.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to watch all of you deal with the freak out of, fuck, this leaked, to then being like, well, that's kind of cool because now we can see how people react to it, to then inadvertently all of you reading the comments and some of you being like, man, it sounds like, just some of the comments like where you're like, well, this dude doesn't even know what the fuck he's talking about. Like, just things like that. And it was very, like I said, very eye-opening to see such a very interesting wide array of emotions being seen on, expelled on your end, as the band. And, I feel like I said, like typically when a documentary comes out or anybody gets to see the real creative process of somebody, it's after the fact and there's even a little bit of editing to it so it can be what you want presented.
Yeah.
And so to me, doing a live stream of you creating something is literally creating art that's already vulnerable in and of itself, but you're taking it into a way even rawer emotion because you're like, okay, I'm making this thing and then getting in-time feedback. So like if you're not sure about a part and then someone's like, that sucks, you're like, oh fuck yeah, it does. Like I don't know that I could subjugate myself to just literally having that happen like in real time, like because I know how challenging it can be just to like want to put something out when it's all said and done and you collectively are all like, okay, this is the Browning, this is our new record and we're proud of it and it's ready to go. Never mind the fact that you're in the midst of just trying to create it and then getting instant feedback. It's like I was like, man, if this is what the world's coming to, like I just did, like that'd be almost like trying to do a live podcast and all that kind of stuff where it's like I don't think I could do it because like I fuck up way too much and like people say things and it's just like, no, there's a reason you edit things and put out like the final product.
Yeah, well, and it was tough because like I don't know, there's a lot of pressure on me for Browning music because I write the majority of it, and it was very good to just basically be forced into writing too, though. So that was a big thing to me because I would get in my head and get super stressed and depressed and crap like that to where then I just wouldn't write for like weeks, And so for people to be expecting to see me do that every day was actually a huge driving factor in this album even getting done. So I don't mind being in front of people. Like I'm really comfortable. I'm pretty quiet and kind of a hermit, but whenever I get put into social environments, I do really well. So it was all kind of really natural for me. But like I said, there was stuff I wanted to do on this album that I knew people would freaking crap, And so
There's
I
definitely
did,
some adventurous
yeah,
stuff on here that I was like, man, I am excited. Like I don't know it like you're saying where it forced you to write. So I don't know if you typically just randomly will have ideas for stuff and are constantly writing in one way, shape, or form.
yeah,
But some of the things that you did on this record makes me really excited to see if you push go down that avenue a little more.
yeah.
Um,
I basically, once I finished this album and really listened to it and finished the vocals, um, I I said to everyone, I was like, I'm just really excited to write the next one. Like, it's actually exciting. Like, to be honest, like writing Isolation and starting writing this one was very stressful, and like, it was putting me in like really bad headspace. And so, but now I'm like actually excited to write the next album. Um, and like, this album has a lot of stuff that's going towards a rock and like an industrial rock metal route.
yeah.
And this album, I would say, is about 30% to where I want to be sound wise.
Okay.
And we're talking about some stuff, but the next album or EP will be probably 80 to 90% where I want to be sound wise. And so it really excites me because like I want to like, okay, overarching theme with the album, accepting fate, accepting what it is, and just moving on. At some, I'm getting towards being 30 years old, and I want to have a career, like a real career. Now, I do have a career, but it's not something that 5 people can have a career off of or whatever. And so, if it needs to be pushed to a spot where it can be a career, and that's something we have to accept. And something that I'm gonna also accept is if this isn't to that point by the time I'm 30, like I'm gonna be done with it, and done with it in the sense of doing it full time. Like I'll still always write Browning music,
Mm-hmm.
and so, but also it's something that I need to create a sound that is something I can grow older with. And something I can play when I'm older and something I can really be behind when I'm older. And so the sound has to start transitioning towards something that is more relevant towards what I like and what everyone in the band more so likes now. Um, which is a more mainstream metal or rock. And like all I listen to is like really the most metal thing I listen to is Gojira. And they have a lot of rock influences in their stuff, and even their metal aspects are more of an acceptable metal.
Well, I was gonna say if you even look at their last record, Magma, versus say The Way of
Yeah,
All Flesh, like you can see that
exactly.
they even took a different approach to their music and their sound.
Yep.
And to me, I mean, case in point, like I think a great point of what you're trying to say, or what you are saying, and kind of a point of with Gojira is like someone like Eddie Trunk who only listens to, kind of older, quote unquote rock. And even he's like, I don't like the old Gojira, but I like the new record because it's more what I kind of
Yeah,
listen to with harder rock. And so
exactly.
to me, I feel like Gojira was able to do it, and it never felt like Magma didn't come out of anywhere where you're like, I don't know how this sound came to be. So
Uh-huh.
like I said, I feel like this Browning record is very much you, but I feel like it's the evolution of you at this point. And like I said, I'm very excited with this record to kind of see where you're able to push some of the new
Definitely.
influences that you're putting in.
Yep. I basically want to be like I want to eventually I see it being like a heavy, more melodic Rob Zombie or Rammstein.
I definitely got Rammstein. I
Yeah.
don't remember what song it was. There's one with a kind of I don't know if it was an overdub of sorts, but just kind of a vocal effect or whatever in something in
Yeah.
German. And I was like, I almost feel like this could have been Till on this.
Yep. Yeah, they're one of the main bands that I listen to like on a regular basis, and I listened to only Rammstein for about like a year and a half or so.
Would you like to? Do you ever see yourself getting to the point? Obviously, I know it would cost a lot to do this, but just like production wise and things like that. Like, do you see the Browning
Yeah.
ever getting to that point where you're able to visually in a live setting kind of do something else with
Yeah.
with the music.
Yeah, I mean that's the goal of this record, and basically the goal of starting this touring cycle is pushing. Because the thing is, um we sound really really good live. We have really really good energy. The crowd is really really good, but we just look like metal band on stage, you know. And
Yeah.
so, with our sound being so different, we need a stage presence that is also different. But the only reason that hard, because that's been a forefront and something that I felt has held us back. But basically, what anything like that comes down to is money.
Right.
And like obviously, we have all the creative like needs to be able to make something like that, and we have, you know, I'm really good whenever it comes to technology and all this stuff, so like programming lights and all that stuff is easy. It's just about having the money to do it. And so, um basically we're wanting to step up our headlining presence and step up our live show so that we can start charging more at a door, so we can get better bands to tour with us, so that we can start making more money, so we can, you know, actually make a living doing this. And so yeah, that's actually like the main primary focus on this album cycle is push our live performance so that we can start, um and it's really not too much money. Like really we're only talking like $5,000 in lights,
Right.
you know.
Well, then you
It's
can get
just
a
about having an extra $5,000, you know.
yeah, and then you get a sweet light guy like Frank Finelli to push those buttons and make you look good.
I'm just gonna program it. We don't even need a light, dude.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, kind of speaking to some of the bands, like you just got off a tour with Mushroom Head, who I had on here a
Yeah.
little while ago, and you know some of the bands you've gotten to play with. You know, I spoke earlier of the tour you did with Chimera. You know, you guys did I think it was just one show or maybe two shows with Korn a couple years
Yeah.
ago. You know, getting to play with a lot of these, you know, I'll call them legacy acts at this point. And so something I was kind of wondering is like, you know, do they ever give you any advice, you know, from you know, these bands that have been around for 10, 20, almost 30 years at this point, you know, that they offer a lot of those bands kind of just like, nah, you're the opening band and hey.
We've been lucky in the sense of every one of those bands we've toured with and played with actually like our band.
That's awesome.
And like whenever we toured with Fear Factory, like Dino's ringtone was our song "Standing on the Edge." And we like with Mushroom Head, they actually really like our music. And even with Korn, I had a conversation with them to where like found out that they had actually listened to us. There's like picture of like or video of like Head wearing one of our shirts. And so um whenever it comes to being around those people though, I don't really I typically try not to bug them. I don't
Right.
want to ever seem like a nuisance or anything. But Mushroom Head is a great example of a band that literally people see them because they have a cool live show, you know.
Very true.
And so like they have fans that come no matter what every single time for the past however many years because they have a cool live show. And so it's like um if we had that aspect, we already have tons of fans that come no matter what, just because it's a fun time. And so if we had that extra element of visually looking awesome also, then I think we could really blow up, honestly, because we also kill it on if we play shows, like no matter what kind of tour it is, like whether it's a heavy tour, softer tour, scene tour, rock tour, like we kill it. And so we just need that extra element to really push ourselves. So that's a major focus for sure.
You know, something in kind of looking and trying to listen to the back catalog a little bit, I noticed that you're missing two of your records on iTunes. I'm kind of
Yeah.
assuming it's because the old label that those were on either, you know, whatever, just didn't put them up.
I honestly don't even know. Like those dudes are idiots, so they just disappeared, and I don't know. Like it's dumb for them. I don't know if they're doing it out of spite or something, because like I got out of their contract, and there's nothing they could do about it. And I don't know if it's out of spite, but it'd be stupid out of spite because if it's not up, then they don't make money. So whatever.
Right. Yeah.
I'd rather people listen on Spotify anyway. So
On the record, I don't use Spotify a whole lot. Is it on Spotify? I didn't even look.
yeah, they're all on Spotify. They only got taken off of iTunes. I don't know
Weird.
why.
I was okay. Well, I guess that the follow-up question doesn't really apply then. I was going to say at that point, then, if that was the case, like, I know a lot of bands would typically pay attention to, the songs that are reacting the most, and it kind of almost creates like a set list of sorts. I was going to say, like, in the event that the first two records aren't on there, like, is that going to make you lean more toward what's actually online? But like I said, that doesn't apply.
With our, I mean, we're to a point now where we're pretty much done playing all old songs anyways.
Okay.
And I take Bring Me the Horizon as a really good example of this, because I honestly think Bring Me the Horizon is the perfect band, and they've done their transition perfectly.
Yeah.
To like a more mainstream sound. When they put a new album, they basically don't play old songs.
Nope.
Like, they don't play old songs. And the thing is, whenever they do put out a new album, everyone freaking loves it. And if you go there live, everyone's singing all the songs, all their new songs. Like, so you need to, if you want your fans to back your new crap, you have to back your new crap too. And so, we've basically stopped playing most of our old stuff. If we're headlining, we'll probably play a few of like the essentials.
Okay.
But we're basically only playing songs off Isolation and Geist now.
Well, that's cool. I think it'd be kind of interesting. I haven't seen you guys since Isolation came out, so it'll be kind of interesting to see how some of these other songs weave in and out of a set at this point.
Yeah, well, I can't wait. Like, because also a big thing about this whole transition is like we're wanting to push ourselves to potentially being able to become like a real big band, and to be able to do that, you have to be capable of putting on a good headlining show. Well, what's not a good headlining show is playing heavy crap for an hour, fast, heavy techno crap for an hour. So like this kind of music is essential to putting on an actual headlining show.
Right.
Because we need to have those elements where people can listen and enjoy their time without having to mosh. And for us to have dynamics in our set to where like it's not just screaming the whole time. It's not just like thrashing around and, going fast. Like if you ever go to any band that's headlining and they're playing an hour and a half or something and it's just metal the whole time, like after 40 minutes, you're just like, can this end, please?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who the band is. You get sick of it.
Yeah.
And especially us with how much I yell at the crowd and tell them to do stuff, like the crowd, I've noticed like after 30 minutes, our crowd starts to really become dead until they like sit there for like 3 or 4 songs and then they can give it their all the last song,
Right.
And so it's now with having songs that are more dynamic, that have soft spots, that have more dynamic elements, we can actually put together a set that the crowd can be interested the whole time, and after an hour you'd be more like, dang, like I want them to play more, rather than like, dang, thank God, dude.
Yeah, I definitely kind of noticed that there was a little bit of more pauses for things, because like I said, having seen you guys a couple of times, it was kind of a bit unrelenting in a not good way. It's because it's like I can't jump that much, especially as a mid 30-something-year-old and whatever, and it's too high energy for too long. And hearing this, it was kind of nice, like like you said, a song like the track 6, the something
Awaken the Omega.
Yeah, Awaken the Omega. It's like I was like, oh, here's like kind of a nice pause
you literally don't have to mosh during that song.
No. And even a song kind of like I said, Skybreaker, or sort of Amnesia at times too, like it kind of picks up and there's peaks and valleys, which again, kind of to me, I was like, oh, I feel like this is a band kind of, or you, I guess, kind of growing more, and something, Bring Me, I think, is a great example. That's a band I didn't like until Sempiternal, and
me neither.
It was one of those things where, for me, there's nothing more gratifying than to be like, this band sucks, this band sucks, this band sucks. Or at least being able to be like, this band could be cool if. And, I had the same moment very recently having Jaden from Siler on, where I was like, I don't mind hearing heavy, aggressive music, but like you said, it gets rather repetitive, because unfortunately when you have an 8-string guitar and you're playing all that kind of stuff, there's only so many things and rhythms you can do. But when they did Help, they kind of went more bring me kind of Linkin Park kind of
Yeah,
sound with a little bit of that kind of heavier edge to it. And it's like, oh my God, more of this, please. Like, you fucking figured out. You figured out how to write a good song with good
exactly.
parts. And I kind of have that same, like, moment on this where I was like, they figured out, like, I don't need to be, like, beaten over the head for, for like
Yep.
an hour. And, like, I could even think of, having seen you guys, it's like, okay, here's the part where it's like, okay, jump, kind of
Yeah.
building the energy into this thing where it's like, and here's the release. And kind of speaking to that, there's a band from here in Grand Rapids. I don't know if you were ever a fan of Still Remains.
Yeah.
And, something that was always kind of a bummer for me, being a fan of those guys and being friends with some of them, is I never felt like here in the States that sound really ever was big. But overseas, it was huge. And listening to this record, it's like, there's a lot of stuff that I feel like I can't speak to how well you do in other areas or whatever, but I feel like your music is like you're able to think beyond just your US scene. And
Yeah.
so I feel like it's like this is something that's going to appeal to a way wider demographic, like just the overall sound. And it may not be
Definitely.
something that appeals to Americans because we don't listen to a lot of these other things. And if you do, you're one
Uh-huh.
of the fringe people that listens to these niche genres.
Yeah.
But am I wrong in assuming that you guys do really well over like in Europe and so forth?
Yeah. We're pretty good amount bigger in Europe than we are in the States, and I relate that a lot to our electronic style, which is like European hard style,
Right.
and also like the metal influence in the Browning is a lot like Rammstein and also like Amon Amarth. Like if you take some of our songs and take off the electronics, it sounds like Amon Amarth, like 100%.
Yeah.
And like especially some of our older songs, and so I listen to a lot of European metal and rock, and I only listen to European electronic music. So um the our sound is very European overall.
Okay.
So yeah.
I just always, as I was kind of listening today, I was like thinking, I was like, man, I can see, even if you were playing something like Wacken or, like
Yeah.
Rock am Ring or Rock am Park or any of these like European festivals that, I
Yep.
mean, I've never been to and I only see videos, but it's like, I can already see the 40, 50,000 people going apeshit during some of these
Yep.
songs. And it's
Well,
like,
the I those type of festivals changed my writing style, honestly.
oh, okay.
The first time we played with Full Force in Europe, we it was our very first show ever in Europe, ever outside of the States, and we were a small band. Yeah, I think it was 2010 or 2011. I don't even remember. It was probably 2011, and so we had no backdrop, no stage scrims, no nothing. Like literally, there's nothing on stage that said who we were, and we were playing. We played right after Heaven Shall Burn,
Oh, wow.
and we were on the side stage. Well, I was just like, okay, I assumed we played at like no one, and it's a massive, it was a massive area, um, and we started sound checking. And whenever we started sound checking, people started sprinting from the main stage, watching Heaven Shall Burn, to come watch us on the side stage. Whenever we were sound checking, and then we, got done sound checking, and there was like while we were sound checking, there was like 1,000 people moshing in front of us, and then and then so we went back off stage, and then we were just sitting there waiting, and the whole area just like filled up. There was like probably about 10,000 people in front of us before we started playing,
Wow.
and the whole crowd started chanting the synth melody for our song "Bloodlust," and it sounded like a soccer stadium. They were going da 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 ba da 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 da, like chanting it. And I was like, what the freaking crap? Because I'd never even been to a European show at that point, and we had never been there. And so then we play our set, and they're chanting our synth melodies the whole time for songs like Bloodlust and Standing on the Edge, like the da 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 da. And so I was like, that blew my freaking mind. And so I started writing all my synth melodies based off of melodies that could be sung and chanted. Um, and so whenever you listen to like Dragon,
Yeah.
I started writing, and same with Skybreaker. Like I started writing all my melodies for big synth parts to be able to be chanted. So like those European festivals literally changed like my writing style.
Yeah. No, like I said, I definitely I get more of a crowd participation, not necessarily in having to jump around, but just parts of like chanting
Yep.
and so forth. And like I said, having seen you guys, I can kind of see more of it in different parts. So,
Yep.
but yeah, so I'm kind of glad it kind of sucks that the American crowd isn't necessarily big on it, but at the same time, it's like there's more to the world than just the American crowd.
Yeah. Well, what
Um,
I started doing, I started doing it on this last tour. I did it a couple times where, because the thing is, the people in America know the synth melodies,
mhm.
but they don't like sing it.
Right.
So what I started doing, I was like, sing it with me, and then I would do it for like 2 seconds and hold out the mic, and then the U.S. crowd would start singing the melody.
Right. Yeah, it's
So
almost like the clapping to following the kick drum pattern.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much all I have for you. So I'm going to kind of ask you the last couple of questions and get you on with your evening. So the new record, again, Geist, comes out October 26th via Spinefarm Records. Where can everyone follow you and or the band on social media?
Just search the Browning on all the crap, and yeah, we're on all that kind of stuff, and just go listen on Spotify.
Okay. And then lastly, I always like to end these episodes out with a song. So what would you like me to play it out to, and maybe a quick little story about it?
When's this coming out?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm talking to you today. My co-host is talking to Dan from Zayo, and who are putting out a 7-inch or just did, and then I'm talking to Porter from Atreyu in the next couple of days, and Toby from Emery, and all of you are putting out records like right around the same time. So I'm not exactly sure how everything's going.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can just play Final Breath. Final Breath is like was that whenever we were going over the release plans for this album, Carnage, the label really wanted to do Carnage as the first one.
Okay.
And Carnage is like super ideal. This is 1000% what the Browning sounds like. Right. And then I wanted to follow that up with like, yo, this is something from the Browning you've never heard before. And that's what Final Breath is. Final Breath is kind of the epitome of us. Like, there's songs on the album that combine that new kind of rock sound with like big choruses, but the songs are still very Browning like. Right. Well, Final Breath is not Browning like. And so if you've listened, everyone's heard the Browning's name. Everyone is like, but everyone thinks we're a techno metal band. If you've ever heard the Browning's name and you listened to one song from 8 years ago and you've questioned it, I would suggest go listen to Final Breath and maybe rethink it, and then come out and see us, because it's a totally different experience live.
And then my absolute last question: what game are you looking forward to that's coming out soon?
Animal Crossing on Switch.
Okay.
Heck yeah. I actually just bought a Switch only because they announced that, and it's not even coming out till like late 2019, but I'm still like super stoked.
Yeah, I just got 2 games a couple days ago, and I'm waiting for Red Dead 2 to come out, and everyone's been blasting the shit out of Spider-Man, so I feel like I need to get a PS4 so I can play that.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm so stoked for Animal Crossing to come out, and PC-wise, I don't know. I really want like an Outlast 3 or the new Doom Eternal. That's gonna be sick.
When is that coming out?
I'm not sure, but I love the music in Doom, and I love the aesthetic of it. So Doom Eternal is gonna be super tight.
I'm still waiting for a new Half-Life.
That's not happening.
I was just telling someone the other day. I was like, you remember when Max Payne came out, like the first time on computer, and I was like, I used to get really mad when people would call my phone my house because it would break up the internet. And I was just like, and they're like, how old is that game? I was like, it's old.
Yeah.
But yeah, awesome.
Sweet.
Well, thanks again for taking the time to do this, and hopefully see you on the road soonish.
Yep. All right. Peace, dude.
So that was my chat with Jonny McBee, vocalist for the Browning. Dan, again, you couldn't be there for the interview, but what did you think of that chat?
That was an interesting chat, John. For sure. I think that he seemed a little nervous. Maybe not nervous, but just a little distracted. I know you were doing a pretty deep dive on listening to that record, and really trying to pull meaning out of it, because you didn't have any lyrics, to read or anything. So you're just like, I'm going to give it, my best shot at what I think this is about. And I think it sounds to me like you pretty much nailed it. He's like, yeah. I mean, it's basically, a guy, waiting to draw his final breath, and there's, images of volcanoes and just very otherworldly, almost sci-fi type of atmosphere going on there. But yeah, I was a little sad just hearing about the just kind of the woes of trying to promote a band and feeling like you're just trapped and just doing metal. But you're trying to branch out, but everybody still kind of considers you a metal band. Like I get it, I kind of get where he's coming from, and I don't think it's lame necessarily that he feels that way. Like with other bands, I'm kind of like, well, what's wrong with being metal? Is there something you're ashamed of? But it just seemed more in this case that he's like, I never wanted to set out to just do a metal type project, which is, the earlier stuff was more aggressive, and now I'm trying to expand and be, like, because the new album is very very melodic and very well, I mean, the electronics are kind of a given, but I don't know. Like I get where he's coming from, but I don't know if he's made that transition just yet.
I thought it was kind of interesting. Admittedly, okay. It's kind of hard sometimes in doing these interviews because I think we had the record 2 days before I did this chat.
Yeah, we didn't have it long.
No. And I think a thing that should be kind of noted is a lot of times when I do these interviews and I get to talk to some of these band people about their records, and I think you hear the guests literally say this quite a bit, is, oh, do you have the record? Have you heard the whole record? Not just the few songs that are out, and the answer typically is yes. But the thing is I think, so early into this promotional cycle for this record, I don't know that a lot of people have. I think when I talked to Jonny after we were done recording, he said he'd only done like 1 or 2 interviews at this point. And
he seems surprised that you'd heard the whole record.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point is it's hard to really take in a record in 2 days. I mean, I don't care who you are. And even my interview where, I think I latched onto lyrical themes and lyrical content without even having the lyrics to look at. But I'm basing a lot of what I'm hearing off of literally not looking at any of the album artwork, not looking at any of the lyrics, not looking at anything, just literally having my phone in my pocket with the album just on a repeat and trying to pick things up as I'm listening to the record as a whole, basically starting to finish and then looping back to the start. And it just gets to the point where it becomes, thank you for the pizza delivery.
You're making me jealous over here, man.
Yeah, you got to get you one of them great wives that brings you pizza. But it just gets to the point where sometimes, and I make a lot of mention to this, and I think you mentioned it on discography discussion too, where sometimes I wonder if I'm looking too deep into what I'm listening to because I'm looking for more. I'm looking for the things that maybe the casual person isn't. And it's not to toot my own horn that I can see these things that maybe others don't. But sometimes I wonder when I'm talking to these artists about their creation and about these records that I wonder if sometimes I'm over analyzing these things and I'm asking a question that's not even really there. But more often than not, and same with this Jonny interview, is I tend to find that apparently my premonitions are right about what I'm hearing, and even though I can't make out every vocal, I can still kind of understand the overall theme and the concept that's going on. And I think that speaks to how well Jonny and the rest of the Browning camp are able to articulate these thoughts and these themes in the record, that even if you don't have all the information, you still can understand that.
Well, and yeah, I get what you're saying too, because I relate to that in a big way. I mean, I do a podcast where all I do is overanalyze stuff, and it's one of those catch-22s, because you, like, when you're talking to the artist, you don't want to be presumptuous and say, something or take it in a direction that, like, in some cases, like, that they had never even considered, or or whatever it is. But the interesting thing is, like, I totally agree with you. And I think it's hard to make that next step, because a lot of artists, I think they're a little bit more in tune with what the general population wants. And let's be honest, most casual music fans, they just want to hear banging tracks.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think sometimes the artistic side of it is lost for some people. And so I think it's when an artist puts their heart and soul into a project or into a record, makes a record, not just like a collection of songs, but like makes a cohesive, living, breathing statement or thought, or, just like any piece of art. And I think the artists are usually a little taken aback whenever somebody's like, hey, man, I kind of feel like this is where you were going with this, And honestly, I think that's cool. I don't think that's something that should change or something that you need to work on. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's par for the course. I mean, I would rather be recommending something that I had a personal connection to, or that I think that other people could have a personal connection to, but they might need a little bit of help. They might need a little bit of assistance on getting the proper context going into something. So even though it may not seem like there's a question there, it's a better recommendation of the product than just like, hey, you put this new record out. I mean, it sounded pretty good compared to your other ones. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
That just hits the wall like a pancake,
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's just kind of taken for granted in modern day music journalism, so to speak. Everybody's so damn concerned with, like, I guess, like how the product sounds or what the viability of the product is or whatever. And I just that's one thing I like about doing this podcast is I feel like we don't do that like as much, we're not necessarily like on the sales team, So it's a lot better in my opinion, to just get in behind, like, get in the brain of the artist and understand what their actual motivation is, because that's a lot more relatable, and that's what people are going to pick up on.
Yeah, it's really interesting to be able to get a new record, have your initial thoughts, have questions about it, and then literally a few days to a week later, you're talking to the person responsible for what you're listening to, one-on-one, or in the case of if Dan's on, 2-on-1, and getting to talk about it like Dan and I would if no one else was in the room.
Yeah, really, that's what I like. That's what I like about doing my other podcasts. Is it's just something's more appealing to me. Hopefully, it's appealing to other people too. Is just the idea of dudes in a bar chatting. And when John does these in-person interviews, it's really that. In some cases, it's I mean, yeah, a lot of the time it's at a venue or whatever, but it's so on the street, and so, like, we're not sitting in some, like, lifeless soundproof studio, using our best radio voices, trying to make people think that we're a big deal. It's so much better just to hear a conversation with somebody, because that's the way people actually talk to one another. And I know it all seems like so basic and so spelled out, but like nobody really talks about that aspect of it, that it's just it's so much better to just get into the brain, have an actual conversation with somebody, and that includes some of the off topic stuff too, that's not necessarily on the brand, stuff that is just more human.
Yeah, I mean, that was the fun thing talking with Johnny. Like, I know he's got a Twitch channel where he, streams him playing video games, and it was interesting to talk to him about how, he was trying to do the live Twitch of him writing this new record. Like, I've never heard of anyone taking that approach. Like, you might get little snippets here and there. You might get some Instagram videos and so forth, or a DVD when the product's all done, like I said, but literally streaming for 8 hours, watching a dude trying to make a new record, like, I've never heard of anyone doing that.
Yeah, that's different. I don't know if I could even watch that, to be honest, but I mean,
it'd be so awkward.
I mean, if it helps, If it helps, yeah. Like, I mean, I just feel like I was spying on someone at that point, you know. But just sitting in my underpants, watching it with a tub of ice cream next to me, something like, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if that were if that were the case.
Yeah, I definitely think that's something that was really interesting to me, and I'm really, thankful for Jonny for coming on and doing the podcast and being so kind of open and forthcoming with a lot of the things on the new record. And the new record, speaking of, it's called Geist, and it comes out October 26th via Spinefarm Records. They're a great label that are getting ready to put out and have been putting out such great quality music as of late. Like, they're basically signing anyone and everyone. I mean, they have the new Atreyu coming out soon. They got this new Browning record. They have 36 Crazy Fists. Like, I mean, fuck, that record label's got basically everyone on it, and there's so many great records on that label. It's stupid. They're basically...
Yeah, it's a musician's record label.
I was going to say, in the day and age where, like, Dan and I have talked countless times about, the Ross Robinsons and the Toby Wrights and the... Roadrunner records and Solid State records and all this kind of stuff, like, in that era being lost, it seems like Spinefarm is kind of picking up where that era of bands and a label being so synonymous that, like, it's like, oh, anything I buy on this record label is going to be good. And I feel like Spinefarm is definitely picking up that ball and running with it, with the roster that they have, and keep expanding with. I mean, like I said, take a look at their roster and tell me that it doesn't cover every genre at this point. But again, the record is called Geist. It comes out October 26th via Spinefarm Records. And if you would like to keep up with The Browning, you can find them on Facebook under The Browning. Instagram is The Browning Official. And Twitter is The Browning Band. And if you would like to keep up with Jonny, you can find him on Instagram under Jonny McBee, as well as on Twitter, simply just his name. And Dan, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at DiscussMetalDan. You can find me on Facebook. Now, on Facebook, it's a little complicated, so you might want to write this down. You can find me on Facebook under Daniel Terry. And you can find my other podcast, Discography Discussion, at DiscussMetal.com. And you can send me an email if you'd like to at discussmetaldan@gmail.com.
If you would like to keep up with all things the podcast, you can find the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at John's Untitled Podcast. Tweet at us at John's Untitled Pod, and email us at johnsuntitledpod@gmail.com. And if you would like to support us monetarily, you can over at Patreon on patreon.com/John's Untitled Podcast. We have 2 episodes up currently. We're going to be recording a 3rd here pretty soon. And Dan will tell you why rating, reviewing, and subscribing is a thing that we love.
We love rating, reviewing, and subscribing, and the main reason we love it is because it helps us get recommended to other people like yourself that might want to hear this podcast that don't know about it. And typically highly rated podcasts are highly recommended podcasts. And so that's what we're going for. But we also do appreciate the kind words. And we appreciate the not so kind words if they're constructive. And, that's as Tom Hanks once said, that is all I have to say about that.
Won't you be my neighbor?
Oh, yeah, he is saying that now, isn't he?
Yeah. I am infinitely more interested in that movie now that he's playing Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, definitely. I'll have to check that out. I'm kind of behind on movies and stuff lately.
Yeah. And in keeping up with newer things, we're going to play this episode out as we always do with a song. So we are going to play it out to Final Breath by The Browning off of their upcoming record. Again, it's called Geist, coming out October 26th via Spinefarm Records. Go pre-order it. Go support the dudes. They are great dudes. And follow all the guys on Twitter, Instagram, and all that kind of stuff. And if they come to your town, go support them. Let them know that John's Untitled Podcast sent you. And with that, here is Final Breath by The Browning, and we will talk to you later.